Good day to everybody. My name is Steve, and welcome to this version of Friday Fundamental Webinars. We're going to be covering some of the new and exciting features that we have been added, that we have added to SoftPlan version 2026. This is the second webinar covering new versions of 2026. The previous one being held 2 weeks ago. So if you're not yet reviewed that, there is a post on our YouTube channel that um, goes over all the additions in the first webinar. This one is being recorded, so it will be posted on our YouTube channel in the coming days as well, so you can review it when you have a chance. But today I'm going to be covering about 13 of the major additions we've added to version 2026. There's obviously a lot more that we've packed into this version. We just simply don't have enough time to cover them all. So if you do want a complete list of all the newly added tools and features, you will find these posted on our website under the upgrade heading on our homepage. So to get started, the first feature I want to cover off is one feature that has been so far very well received, and that is the ability to add profiles along your roof surfaces. It's an option that's quite similar to how profiles are included in wall definitions. I have this steel building here, noticing that the walls currently are set with a profile. It's a custom profile, I believe, but we can specify the walls to extract with a profile. The board and batten wall, for example, in our stock wall definition list does indeed use a profile, and you can create your own walls with your own unique profiles. That ability has now been expanded to also include profiles on the roof. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to edit the middle of this roof, and I'm going to change the finish into standing seam metal. Traditionally, the look of the roof surface has been gained by applying a texture. So if I do a surface edit, this is the texture that defaults to the standing seam metal. If necessary, you can choose a different texture to apply perhaps a different color, but the realism and the ability to choose a different color easily is kind of limited to the number of textures that are provided there for you. Now in version 2026, if we do another edit on the middle of the roof, we have the option to change the style. And in this case, we're going to choose a profile. There are a number of profiles that ship with the program that you can apply to your roof. A number of standing seam metal roof profiles are at the top. I'll choose this 24-inch trapezoid. And we're now extracting a profile along the edge of the roof. I'll switch my 3D view to a textured view quite quickly, just so you can get the sense that we're now have 3D view or a 3D look to the actual standing seam metal on the roof in as much as what is on the wall. This allows for a much easier change of the color if necessary. So a surface edit on my roof, I can now quickly choose any color I want, either through the color swatches or picking from the color palette. And I can choose whatever color to suit the design. In this particular case, I think I'll just use copy paste to get the same color that's on the wall or top half of the wall to the roof. This will also create a little bit more accurate elevations. So for the side elevation or the front here, because the front is pointing towards the left, but we now can see from an elevation point of view the actual textures, or sorry, the actual profile on the roof rather than the texture. So a lot more accurate elevations can be generated, especially if you're dealing with a standing seam metal. There are a couple of other profiles that we've included. Another one that may be more popular is the ability to extract clay tiles. Now, this building obviously doesn't kind of suit a clay tile, but I'll demonstrate it here. Sorry, back in 3D, editing the middle of the roof again. I'll change the finish to the clay tile. And one of the profiles, or several of the profiles here, are for clay tiles towards the bottom. I'll choose the last one here. This may take a little while to generate. You can watch the stop button until it hits regenerate again, but this will extract a profile of the clay tile up and along the roof, as we see here. Again, your elevations are going to be a lot more accurate. The 3Ds are going to pop more. They'll have more accurate representation of each clay tile. With that in mind, though, that does increase the complexity of the model. In the status bar, this number up here, just over what's that, 1.5 million or 1.5 million. That's the number of surfaces that the program has to keep track of for this particular model. Generating these profiles along the roof, especially with the clay tile, that greatly increases the number of surfaces the program has to keep track of. So you want to kind of manage your 3D model. You don't want to make it too complex. So if you are going to rely on these profiles, keep in mind it will create a more complex 3D model, and it may bog down your system here and there the depending on the computer you have, the type of hardware. You want to kind of manage how many surfaces are going to be applied within your 3D model. So with that in mind, there are a couple of other styles that are provided. If I edit my roof again and change it back to asphalt shingles, another profile that's been included is that of asphalt shingle. Again, this may take just a moment to regenerate, but there it goes. What this does is simulate actual 3-tab shingles on your roof. It models them. Again, your elevations, although it'll be kind of hard to tell, maybe I can orbit it a bit, but your elevations are now going to extract each individual tab of your shingle. Again, it's going to create a much more complex 3D model, and you may want to balance that off of generating it using just a texture. So if I come back to the 3D view, turn off the style, the program will then rely, for the asphalt shingle at least, it's going to rely on an image. So you might want to balance that if you're going to gain a lot of realism. Is it well worth it based on how complex your model is going to become? I'll remain here and shaded just so we can see more clearly some of the other styles. So in addition to the asphalt shingles and the traditional 3-tab, there is the ability to add or simulate, if you will, the architectural shingle. It's varied pattern, so we have a specialized style for it. Again, it may take a little bit to generate, but yep, there, once it's done, it gives you that pattern of a architectural shingle. It's a more varied pattern compared to the 3-tab. Along with that ability to specify different styles, and this might also hold true for the clay tile where it becomes apparent, is something called the texture count. This allows you to specify different color variations along the same style of roof. I've set the pattern here to 5, so once it's done generating, it's going to use 5 different colors randomly stacked across your roof surface to give you that um, different variation of colors for that architectural shingle. The other style we've introduced is the ability to have cedar shake. shake individually. I also have my texture count at 5. So once it's done generating, it's going to show us the shake, but in a varied pattern of 5 different colors, as we see there. Okay, so that's the ability to add new styles. The main benefit, I think, for this is, again, setting it to a standing metal and extracting the appropriate profile for a standing sea metal roof. Okay, so using that can greatly add realism to your 3D models, although again, keep in mind just how busy it makes your model. And again, that's that value there up in your status bar. You want to kind of monitor that to make sure you're not adding too much detail that over complicates the model. The next new feature I want to demonstrate, it's another really big feature, and that is the ability to import 3D models. For example, this is a kind of an commercial style building. We're going to need perhaps to sell the design. We might want to start laying out different objects or symbols that kind of correlate to the type of building we're trying to sell. In this case, I need a forklift. So we can come up to draw a symbol, do a search, and unfortunately for this case, there will be no forklift symbol that we provided. Under File and Import, we've now added a Download 3Ds. This is a great tool. Now, we've always had the ability to import symbols from other sources. The 3D warehouse was one of those, but this new automatic import is a tremendous addition to quickly add these extra symbols that you can't find elsewhere. So here we're just going to look for forklift, and it will come up with several different examples. You can scroll through that list once you find one that you prefer and like. There's the option to download it, or if you click on it itself, it gives you a quick preview of it. You can then generate the 3D preview, take a look at that there. This is generated obviously from the 3D warehouse, and I should warn you that it does require you to sign up with your Google account. It is a free website, but we will need to sign in, uh, or I guess sign up with your Google account in order to have access to download these files. But once you're granted access to download anything, once you find the file you like, hit the download button, choose the SketchUp file, it quickly downloads it, and in the SoftPlan side, it imports that information automatically. It generates the 3D information, and you can follow along there. And then it will generate automatically the 2D representation for that symbol. Depending again on how complex that symbol is, it may take some time. This symbol that I did choose is relatively complex, so it's going to take a little bit of time to do so. Here it is. Once it's downloaded, we can hit OK. And add that symbol. It's a great way to add extra detail to your 3D model. Very fast, efficient. I'm just going to move this guy over here so he's not between the doors. But again, that's a great way to add extra symbols. Again, we've always allowed you to import objects from the 3D warehouse. There was a 3D symbol wizard, which is still there. But doing it this way, you can see just how easy it is. You just pick what you want, and there it is. Let me show you that again. I'm going to come back to the main floor plan. Inside my main floor plan, there's a bunch of symbols there. There are a bunch of workshop symbols, lathes, table saw, because this is an industrial type building or a commercial building. And on the inside, I want to add further realism, extra things perhaps hanging on the wall. I can download symbols directly from a plan view as well. From the file import, download 3D brings up the same SketchUp 3D warehouse. In this case, I'm going to look for an extension ladder. There is none that we provide in the program, but there's a number of them that you can download from the web or from the 3D warehouse. Prior to downloading it, I maybe should point out that the size of the file is there. So again, you're kind of weighing that option is, do you want a very complex 3D model or something that's more simple? Because you don't want to bog down the generation time of your 3D model. I'll choose this one here, hit the download button, SketchUp file, quickly creates the plan view and the 3D equivalent. Hit OK, and I can go ahead and draw that symbol. Back in 3D, let me walk up and into my building. And there's the 3D symbol I just imported. Very fast, very efficient. The next thing I want to demonstrate is the ability to take those symbols, and this is any symbol, not just the ones you download, but you can orientate those symbols now in 2026 in any which way you want. For example, I want this ladder to hang on the wall lengthwise. I can now rotate that symbol. And this is another big feature that we've added. You'll find lots of uses for this. To do so, when you edit any symbol, or specifically symbols that have a 3D counterpart, you'll get a 3D rotation tab. From here, you can specify a 3D rotation. And in this case, I'll say it's 90 degrees. So that does rotate the symbol in that orientation. And then I can just move the symbol up to simulate that that symbol is actually hanging on the wall. Kind of adds further realism and detail to my interior 3D shot. Back in the plan view, there's the symbol. The dotted red line that we just see there, that's the actual symbol's orientation in 3D, where the purple lines are the true 2D representation, or its original 2D representation. Since this thing now is hanging on the wall, ideally I should rotate it so it's flat against the wall. So we'll quickly do that. Rotate item. And then move it directly against the wall. Next, if we edit that symbol, it's probably more appropriate in this case to show the symbol's rotated point of view rather than the plan point of view. Currently, the dotted red lines are a preview again of its 3D orientation, but they're non-printing. If we want to show this symbol in a printed form, its rotated version, when you edit the symbol into the 3D rotation tab, well, you can turn off the display of its rotation. So that gets rid of it. But more importantly, if you leave that on and turn off the original display, then the 3D rotation is what is then drawn in a purple line, default symbol colors. And that is how it will be printed. Okay, so that's 3D symbol rotation. Again, there's going to be a lot of uses that you'll find for that new tool there. That 3D rotation, though, is not limited to symbols. We've also included that 3D rotation on all solids. And a very good example here is our cylinder. We have a cylinder that stands straight up. Although ideally didn't have an easy way to make the cylinder lie down. Well, we do now. So I drew the cylinder. Let me give it some height. I'll give it 3 foot height. And let's say for this example, I need some sort of exhaust vent or pipe through the wall. So I'm going to use this cylinder, our cylinder, rotate it, and it will simulate that pipe through the wall. Let me go back to 3D. There's the cylinder. Edit it. And from the 3D rotation tab, let me just give a different perspective so we can see the rotation lines. Rotate it 90 degrees. And then move it into position. Okay, so you can now start rotating solids if you needed to. And you can rotate in more than one direction. In plan view, as an example, edit that cube so it's an exact cube, 4 by 4 by 4. Go to 3D rotation and rotate it 45 degrees in both directions. So in essence, it's just balancing itself on its one corner. And from a plan point of view, again, the dotted red line is the rotated orientation. And if you prefer to print the rotated orientation, just turn off the display original and it will only show you the rotated orientation. The other object that has been given the ability to rotate in 3D is 3D text. Let me move this guy down so we can see him easier. There we go. Edit that text. And as you edit the text, there again is a 3D rotation option. So here I'm going to rotate him. I think it's a 10-degree rotation. So we can have that text follow the slope of the roof as we need it to. I'll edit the new text I just added. And if you want to rotate in the opposite direction, you can specify a negative rotation. It just rotates it in the opposite direction. So here, the name of this company, let's say, is Select Heating. And I want those names to be written on the side of the building following the roof line. I can now move them into position. So that's the ability to rotate not only symbols, but also solids, and in this case, the 3D text. So again, there's going to be a lot of uses you'll discover for that 3D symbol rotation. Next thing I want to just quickly go over kind of relates back to what we were talking about here with how busy your model is. So now that I've added some extra symbols, some 3D text, it has added a few extra surfaces. So I got just under 500,000. Under Help and Information and the Model tab, this again will repeat the number of what we call rendered triangles. Again, that's how many surfaces are currently in this 3D model. The stored triangles information is the number of unique surfaces. For example, the roll-up door has a number of surfaces, but those surfaces are duplicated. The total rendered triangles is how many surfaces are in the entire model, whereas stored triangles removes the duplicated ones. Because quite frankly, once we extract or once the program extracts one symbol, it can quickly and easily make a copy of the other. So it's not as um, hard on the program to generate the same symbol twice. Generating unique symbols, on the other hand, can bog down the system more depending on how complex those symbols are. So, although in past versions we described or shown you how many rendered triangles there were and how many stored triangles, the next few lines there, how many triangles or how many surfaces are on each individual drawing. Obviously, my main floor has the most. But the new thing that we've added in this information dialog is the individual symbol count. So for example, I've downloaded two symbols from the 3D warehouse. This is the forklift. I did not name it. That's the name that it came with. So Monte Cargo has the majority of the surfaces for my model. Again, the whole model is just under 500,000, where nearly 300,000 are just for that one model. So we can use this dialog just so you get a sense of how complex that new 3D symbol you just downloaded from the warehouse is. And if I scroll through that list, some of the others that are there, ones that we provide, again, some of the workshop symbols are part of what is already in your libraries. Individual openings, the roller door, as I say, has 947, but or sorry, 974, but that's in there twice. So the overall symbol count includes both of those doors, although the stored triangle count only includes one of them. Okay, so that's the information you can derive from that model tab. Again, you want to do your best to manage the complexity of your 3D models, especially now that you can very easily grab something off of the 3D warehouse. You want to make sure that you're getting a symbol that doesn't overcomplicate your model as a whole. Next thing I want to demonstrate, again, dealing with your status bar, I'm going to quickly go back to textured mode, and under options and mode options and lighting tab, turn on path tracing. Path tracing allows the program to get more accurate calculations for shadowing and light sources, or how light is bouncing off various surfaces. Once we have uh, path tracing turned on, hitting regenerate will then regenerate the model with that path tracing. And this is the value that we're looking at here. New to 2026 is the ability to change the number of path traces you have by pulling down that menu item and then changing the number of surfaces. Once you've chosen it, hitting regenerate will then start to regenerate and gives us a countdown. So we get an estimation as to how long that is going to take. And we can also see through its count how long it's going to take. If it's going to take too long here, it's going to be over 4 minutes. I can then stop it, perhaps choose a less number of passes. Here I'll do 200, and it's less than 4 seconds to get it all done. All right, so again, that's new. Your ability to monitor your number of paths in your trace and to indicate how long that's going to take. Just for your information too, the number here beside it with the what looks like a light symbol, that's the number of light sources. So previously we're talking about this value. Again, there's not enough room in my status bar currently to show everything, but hovering over it does give me the number of triangles. Again, just under half a million. And the number beside is the number of light sources. In this case, I just have the default light sources, but as you start adding more and more lights to it, it will add complexity to it. And the program then has to calculate each light source specifically with your path tracing. So it may increase the length of time it takes to finish a path tracing. So that information now is displayed in the status bar so you can better predict how long a particular render is going to take. I'll turn off path tracing for the remainder of today's examples. And the next one I want to cover off deals with terrain and importing information and how to import that information from Google Earth. I'm going to come to the site plan, and first and foremost, what I'm about to show you isn't new. It's always kind of been there. Oops. So I brought to the forefront the Google Maps and the site of which we're developing. So this building here in the middle is the Select Heating company of which we're kind of demonstrating here. And we want to develop this site. And so it'd be important or a good idea to bring that site information into SoftPlan. Now this current first half isn't new. You've always had this ability. We actually invented this ability to import that site image in 2024. So it's kind of a repeat what perhaps you can already do in that version. First and foremost, and you kind of ignore the labeling there, but I'm going to left click on that lower left corner. From that left click at the top are the coordinates specific to that corner. A right click on those coordinates will copy those coordinates to the clipboard. Now that I have those coordinates copied to the clipboard, I'm going to come to File, Project Options, and Location. Right click on either the latitude or longitude and hit Paste. This will paste both longitude and latitude into the program, giving the precise location as to where this site is. I'll hit OK. Zooming into the middle, that point there, what is known as the geolocation point, you'll get that in your site mode. That is corresponding to the longitude and latitude I just imported or copied and pasted. I'm going to move that point into the same location as to where I grabbed it from Google Maps, right there. Now I can right click and import Google Map satellite image. And this will grab that image directly from Google Maps. And given the fact I told it where to place itself, it aligns itself just right, with one exception. My north is not quite the same north as it should be, so I'm going to modify that. I'm going to come up to my north arrow. I've already determined the math, it's 79 degrees. Hit OK. In this case, I do not want to rotate anything. So when it says don't rotate anything, I'll hit OK. And that just rotates my satellite image. Now it's a perfect alignment to my site plan. The image does come in its own layer, labeled as satellite image, and it does come in faded. I'll turn the fade off just so we can clearly see it. If you needed to, you can certainly fine tune its location by moving it around, but in my case, it looks dead on. So I want that image now to remain where it is, so I'm going to lock it. That information I've just gone over is not new. You have that ability since 2024. What is new is what I'm about to show you. Back in 3D, now that we've indicated the satellite image, I can paste that image on top of the site. To do so, I'm going to do a surface edit on my site. And in your list of textures, top of the list will be satellite image. So if you imported your Google Maps data, you'll be able to click on the satellite image and it will paste that image directly onto your site. Let me kind of back up a bit and pan up. Okay, so that ability is what we've added to version 2026, the ability to take that same satellite image that you imported into 2D to also represent that in your 3D side. Should also point out that ability to project the satellite image on your 3D is only available for your system if you have access to DX12 or DirectX 12. So unfortunately, if you only have an DX11 access, that option will not be available. Next thing we're going to cover, we'll have to first add some terrain to this. So again, this kind of is in two parts. I'm going to go over something that has already been in the program for a few versions, and that is importing Google Maps site data. This imports elevation or shot points into your site and starts to give your site some slope. You can now see from the edge, we got thin at the front and it gets thicker at the back because there's a gradual slope all the way to the back of the site. And you can even see from the edge of the building how the grade is kind of sloping from the front of the building towards the back. I'm going to come back to 3D. And again, that is not new. The ability to import that site data has always been there, but I'm going to fine tune that. I'm going to erase those shot points in the middle because I don't want them. And I want to add further detail around the site, further shot points. I'm also going to turn on the fade again so we can kind of fade out the site image beyond. And I'm going to come to grade shot points. 947 is the first one I want to add. I'm going to turn on my cursor snap and snap that in the two back corners. I'm also going to put one in the corner here at the edge and approximately there. 951 feet is what I want next. That's 4 feet more. And put those at that side. So you can gather what I'm doing here. I'm establishing the grade around the building, and I'm being quite specific as to the grade at the side of the building and at the front. The next thing I need to do is I want to verify that these shot points are indeed affecting the property. Given that I snapped them onto the building outline, the program assumes that's what they're going to affect. I'll say no, please modify the property at those corners. And I'll do a repeat edit to gain the same change to the others. With that done, back in my 3D view, we can now see the grade that has been applied specifically around the site, noticing the door or the difference in elevation between those two doors. I can fine tune it. Looks like I don't have quite enough clearance on the one side. So back in site mode, I'll use my move command and just get this guy to move up a bit. Control point move. And I want to move this guy down a bit. That's the one that was imported. I'll quickly maybe switch us back to shaded mode and you get a sense of now how the grade is looking around my site, specifically how it looks around or between the two roll-up garage doors. Again, that's not new. That's kind of a recap of information that we could have done in past versions. What is new is as follows. Back in site plan, I'm going to draw a driveway, use the line method in this case because it's irregular. And again, my snap is still on, so I can snap to some points. And I'm just kind of following that faded view of where the driveway is. This edge likely is curved. I think it's about an 18-inch curve, 10 feet, oh, 18 feet. There we go. And back in 3D, there's the driveway. Now, in order to have that driveway kind of conform itself to the site, traditionally in SoftPlan, we could have done so by editing the middle of the drive and specifying fit site poly to ground. What this does, it takes the corners that I've added, which I've only added 7, and assigns an elevation to those 7 corners. It's missing the elevation between those corners, namely here between the garage doors. The new feature we've added for 2026 is right below it, follow ground grade. If I choose it, it conforms the entire site poly to also include shot elevations that are directly beneath the polygon. It's a tremendous tool in order to quickly slope your driveway, your patio, your sidewalk, or whatever to the entire um, terrain that you've established within your site plan. The other thing that we can do with that follow ground grade, and I'll just zoom up to the corner or the edge here, is we can give it an offset. So sometimes you want to raise or lower your polygon, your driveway, patio, or whatever, slightly above or slightly below your grade. We can now do that by specifying an offset. I'll do 2 inches here, so we raise the driveway up 2 inches relative to where the ground is, or lower it 2 inches, again, relative to where the ground is. It's a small detail, but that can have some uses. Okay, so that's follow ground grade. Again, that allows you to specify shot or to recognize shot points within the middle of your site poly, not just on the corners. Next new feature I want to cover, I'm just going to kind of walk into my building. And it's a small, quick little tool. I'm going to demonstrate it first on these existing stairs I've added. Obviously, I didn't fill out the entire interior. I believe above this floor system are going to be some interior rooms, offices, etc. I left it gutted just so we can clearly see everything here. So there's 2 levels of slabs. These stairs go up to reach the office level, if you will. And it's a small detail, but some people prefer the top riser not to have a riser or a nosing. They want the edge of the floor system to account for that. Although it was possible, it was a little bit perhaps cumbersome to do so, but now in 2026, we can edit any stair and turn off show nosing and show riser from the stair options tab. It's a quick and easy way to do a very simple thing. So if you have use for that, there's the easy button. The other benefit of this is the is full tread, and I'm going to demonstrate that on a deck stair. So out to the side here, in order to reach this door off the ground, we do need to add a series of stairs and perhaps a platform outside. So I'm going to draw that as a deck and some deck stairs. That's this doorway out the side. So I'll quickly add a deck. And then I'll sketch a straight deck stair leading up to that deck. And in 3D, there's my deck stair. Now, if I were to edit that stair, and from the stair options tab, Deck stairs have always disabled its nosing and riser, whereas interior stairs always included the nosing and riser. These being deck stairs, you now have the option to actually turn those on if you desire to. Previous versions, you couldn't do that with deck stairs. So if you needed to, there's the option. One example was that they would have a different color or material for the riser. And they wanted to emphasize that on the final riser as well. Now we can do so. But the more important option here is the is full tread. Applying that will simply raise the stairs up such that the topmost tread is flush to the landing, or in this case, deck, of which it references. It's a very simple tool to get accomplished what is or could have been a little bit more difficult in past versions. Now it's just a simple click and we can raise that stair up so the topmost tread is flush to the landing, or in this case, the deck. All right, so that's a very simple tool. The next thing I want to cover is some of the new additions and features we've added to the brace command. So back in plan view, draw post brace. This is where the brace tool is. And I'll add two braces, make them roughly 4 feet long on either side of the deck. Come back to 3D. I'll show you what those look like. If you're not familiar with them, these just adds an angled brace that we can then support things with. They're a little bit tall. They're actually flush the top of the 13-foot wall that I've put there. I want these to be a little lower, so I'll say 8 feet, and I'll remove their cleanup so they remain at the 8-foot offset, and repeat edit the next one. So that's not new. We've always had the brace, but what is new to 2026 is if I come back to my main floor plan and switch to roof mode, we can now reference a roof edge to braces. We weren't able to do that in past versions. You'd had to have include beams to support a roof. Now you can support a roof directly on those braces. So I'll come to trace roof. I'll trace a simple rectangle around the braces. The left and right edges are automatically finding those braces given the look of their reference circles, whereas the top one, I can quickly go to an adjust item command, grab that top reference point, and place it on the butt end of one of the two braces. And in 3D, I now have a roof that references those braces. That's new. So you can find great uses for that. Common scenario I've seen is you have a gable roof above a garage door, and you want to add what may colloquially be called as an eyebrow dormer, a little bit of a roof or a shed roof just above the garage door, supported on these types of braces. We can now quickly do so by referencing the roof directly on those braces. The next thing I want to demonstrate with those braces is first I'm going to set this to a flat roof. Then I'm going to edit one of the braces. I'm going to narrow it out. I'll just say 2 inch by 2 inch for its width and depth. And the other new feature here is called canopy bracket. It simply inverts the brace so it slopes in the opposite direction. I'll do a quick repeat edit for the other. Then I'll edit those braces and give them a 4-foot extra offset, or 12 altogether. And we get braces that act as a canopy to hold up my flat roof. So that's new. So if you have a use for these canopy brackets, we can now quickly add those by more or less inverting your brace. If doing what I just did, I'm just coming back to roof mode since I've modified its dimensions and properties. I just want to make sure that the roof has found the more narrow brace. So I'm just doing a quick adjust on all of them. And I should show you this in 3D. It is referencing the top of that bracket or brace. So in order to reference the bottom end, I'm just going to increase the top to fascia value by 4 feet. Again, 4 feet is the run of my brace. So let's make that, oops, 4 feet. And that, and I can fine tune that if I want to, move it up or down through the top to fascia. But I now get a roof that is referencing the inverted brace or bracket and giving me that style of roof. All right. Couple more things I want to cover before we are all finished with today. The next thing, again, it's a small tool, but does have great uses. In this example, I have this projection out the back. No longer need it. I want to rearrange the drawing or the design to eliminate that projection. And I do want to maintain the windows along that wall. So I'm going to erase the two side walls of the projection. And using a line to edge, I'm going to align that middle portion back to where the other two walls are. So I've eliminated that projection. However, I still have three independent walls along that back edge, which is why I have corner boards still there as well. Back in plan view, one of the new tools we've added is, well, under the tools menu called combine like walls. It's a very simple tool, but has great uses. Once you've selected that, you'll get little circles wherever the program recognizes two walls that are butted up against each other. All we do is click on those circles and the program creates or combines those two walls. I have two extra circles here because there was indeed a break as I was manipulating this design. Before I do the final one, if you were noticing in my past 3D model, there was an extra corner board here. That was because there was still breaks in the wall. So we can now create a single wall along those areas. So there were three walls on this side and three walls along the back. Combine like walls creates a single wall. A more accurate material list, or as in this case, we needed an accurate wall panel diagram. So we needed a single wall at the back. In past versions, we would have had to erase the extras, adjust the remaining, and then, if necessary, redraw any openings. In this case, when we combine two walls into one, it maintains the openings that are on each individual wall. So that's a great benefit there. Next thing I want to quickly demonstrate, I'll generate a left elevation view. And from the left elevation view, we could always save these as independent drawings. So I'll save it as a SoftPlan drawing. We'll leave it as west elevation. Won't apply any auto paint. And once it's done, that new drawing, I can open it up and see it here. I think I have, yep. I'll open up a plan set page, add west elevation to it. Not a big deal, but I don't like the detail around the garage doors. The lines indicating the roll-up door, I want those to be faded, less pronounced. So in a gray tone, if you will. In order to do that in the current elevation view, because it's one object, if I edit it, it is indeed a symbol. That ability to specify one line in that symbol to use a different pen is a little bit cumbersome. A new feature we've added to 2026 is as follows. If I come to project options from the file menu and under elevation generation, there's the option to turn off symbolized openings. Traditionally, SoftPlan has always grabbed an opening and made it one object or a symbol in your saved drawing. That same tool is under cross-section generation. So if you were going to turn it off in one area, you probably want to turn it off in the other. We'll just do it for the elevations. Hit OK. Back in my elevation view, if I were to save a new west elevation, and I'll this time call it west elevation 2, when I open it up, it no longer has any symbols for any elevation. So if I were to edit the line work of this roll up door, coming to the common tab, it does assign a layer to each of the objects generated from your saved elevation. So now that I know that it's on that particular layer, I can locate that layer. Here it is. Quickly change the pen to pen 16, add my west elevation 2 to my plan set, and I quickly now changed the line work of the door panels to be less pronounced than the rest of the line work. Much faster and easier way to manipulate the pen controls of your openings if we save them as independent line work as opposed to an entire object. All right, so that's new, symbolizing the openings can now be disabled permanently in all your projects. Got two more things I want to quickly cover off here. Next one uh, deals with selection sets. In order to create a selection set, and a selection set simply is a ability to grab a series of objects, and once those objects are selected, you can do a specific task on those objects. To create the selection set, traditionally you've been holding down the control key, and as you hold down the control key, you can draw an expanding box, and anything in that expanding box is included in the selection set. And once you have the selection set, you get the menu item for the available tools to apply on that selection set. From the tools menu, we've added add selection box. This allows you to grab the objects without the need to hold any keys on the keyboard. So I no longer have any, or in this case, the control key held down. And I can now draw an expanding box to indicate the items I want to include in the selection set. Once you have a selection set included, there's also a remove selection box. So if you've grabbed too many, in this case I did, I got the windows because they are in it. I just wanted the symbols within. Now that I have a selection set created, I can then do whatever I needed to do. Let's say, for example, I'm going to put that on layer 1, make layer 1 visible and make it faded so it's less pronounced in my construction set. So that again is the add selection box. And once you have a selection set created, remove selection box allows you to create a box to remove things that are currently in the selection set. So that's remove and add. So I can continue to add and remove things from my selection set. And once I'm done doing whatever it is I needed to do with the selection set, we'll hit clear selection. All right. So yeah, a couple new tools to create your selection set. It's a lot easier to do it through the add selection box as it was using the control key. And the final thing I just want to quickly go over, those that are dealing with Softlist will really appreciate this new addition, and that is dealing with lumber pricing tables. Currently in this particular design, I'm looking at floor joists here. There's 42, but they have a specific cost. And that cost needs to be entered in your lumber pricing tables at a price per foot. So File, System Options, Softlist Configuration will configure the lumber tables. I'll demonstrate the spruce table, but here, this is all the price per foot. The 2 by 10 by 16. So it's a $1.36 per foot. Your lumber yard is going to give you a price per piece, or often gives you a price per piece. So you had to do the math to figure out what the price per foot was. Well, now in version 2026, you could input a price per each. I'll do that by creating a new table. I'll make it as a copy of the original spruce. I do need to give it a constant, so I'll give it SYP, but I'll configure this one as a price per each. I can now either import through an external price table, which is what is most common, or manually enter information. So in this case, 34.28 would be the price of one 2 by 10 by 16. I'll hit OK, save my changes, and then to update this price information, I'll edit the floor joist material and tell it to use my new Southern Yellow Pine table. And if all goes well, I'll have a 34.28. So I'm allowed to enter a price per each. So that's a great way now to maintain or keep your lumber pricing updated, especially if you're given pricing on a per each basis. You can now quickly just enter that pricing without having to convert it to a price per each or price per foot. Well, that is all the time we have for today. And that does conclude our two Friday fundamental webinars, highlighting the big additions and exciting new features we've added to version 2026. Again, this session was recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel in the coming days. So if you want to review anything that was covered, you'll find that there on our YouTube channel. Again, there's a lot more features that we just didn't have time to go over in the two webinars that we've had for the new additions. So again, on our website, under the upgrades heading, you'll find a full list of all the new features. And I do hope you take advantage of these new features, find them useful. If you need more of an explanation or help in using any of those tools, please don't hesitate to contact us here at SoftPlan Technical Support, and we can get you on the right track. So again, thanks everybody for joining me today, and have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks.